Welcome and thanks for joining this talk, titled Understanding GPT-5: Navigating Ethical Challenges in AI. In the next few minutes, we'll unpack how powerful generative models change risk landscapes, why ethics matter for deployment, and what practical steps organizations can take to reduce harm while preserving innovation. Think of this as a roadmap for safer AI at scale, presented by Dr. Microlearning. This slide traces familiar failure modes from prior large language models and why they matter today. Resume filters and poorly tuned chatbots once amplified bias or extremist content, causing reputational and legal headaches. When a model like GPT-5 is widely deployed, that single failure mode multiplies into many surface areas, making proactive governance and guardrails essential rather than optional. Here we visualize how biased web data becomes encoded into models. Trillions of tokens are funneled through pre-processing, which normalizes skewed frequencies and turns them into statistical defaults during training. Those defaults then re-encode social hierarchies, colonial, gendered, racial, so outputs can unintentionally amplify existing power structures instead of reflecting objective reality. Post-training alignment can block overt slurs, but subtle, persistent biases still leak through. You'll see examples like shorter, less confident answers for minority names, occupational stereotypes linking nurses to women and engineers to men, and a tendency to default to Western cultural norms, all of which require more than simple content filters to correct. This slide compares closed versus open models for bias detection and mitigation. Closed systems rely on post-hoc probes, dialect tests, and downstream metrics with limited visibility, while open approaches call for datasheets, bias impact statements, and third-party red teaming, enhancing transparency through proactive disclosure and independent verification, so bias can be diagnosed and addressed earlier. In high-stakes domains, AI errors cascade rapidly. Omissions in medical notes or fabricated legal citations aren't just mistakes. They create a liability cascade among users, vendors, and deployers. Add EULAs that shift risk to customers, and you end up with an accountability vacuum where no party can be held to account or fix the underlying harm effectively. OpenAI's dilemma pits trade secret protection against society's demand for transparency. Withholding dataset recipes and model weights may preserve safety and market edge, but it also removes provenance regulators need to assign blame or correct harms, creating a gap between corporate secrecy and the public's right to forensic transparency and accountability. Mitigating bias in GPT-5 combines reinforcement learning from diverse human feedback with iterative auditing. Diverse annotator pools and fairness rewards penalize stereotypical completions, while targeted counter prompts and repeated subgroup evaluations help lower disparate error rates, creating a process of continuous improvement rather than a one-time fix. When deploying models in high-stakes settings, embed review steps and sunlight documentation into the workflow. Bring domain experts, editors, and ethicists into the loop for fact-checking and logging decisions. Then document AI assistance for regulators and human authorship, so outputs are legible and accountability is preserved at every stage. The EU AI Act is shaping a global move towards systemic risk classification for large generative models, mandating bias testing, clear transparency reports, and cybersecurity audits as conditions for market entry. With similar frameworks emerging in other regions, we're likely heading toward pre-market ethical certification becoming a universal requirement for high-risk AI. Achieving ethical alignment requires a shared responsibility framework. Developers should publish model cards, companies must fund independent audits, users need to demand explainability, and educators have to teach critical AI literacy. Only by coordinating these roles can we align GPT-5's transformative power with societal values and equitable outcomes. This final checklist urges continuous microethics in everyday AI use. Probe for bias before trusting outputs. Disclose when content was AIO assisted. Escalate ambiguous or high OS stakes queries for human review. and track lessons learned to improve systems over time, because incremental ethical practices keep us ahead of each new model iteration.